Dragon's Dogma 2 has been an embarrassment, failure, and a huge problem for Capcom. I don't care what the apologists say. This is a real problem, and I'm going to tell you all about why. Hey, did you know Monster Hunter World has over $800 worth of DLC crap, by the way? Because it does. Well, there's the proof right there. And we're going to talk about what that means for Monster Hunter Wilds and what Dragon's Dogma 2's small pile of issues mean for all of us when it comes to that, and why I am slowly sliding from excited to concerned about one of my favorite game series of all time being ruined by liars, by sleazebags and grey-faced accountants, and how I'm expecting all that to be accompanied by corporate bootlicking suck-up apologists who don't understand the stakes here. Because they are either too young or too ignorant to understand the scope of things here, how things have changed, and how that's not a good thing. Once upon a time, in 2021, Capcom published an integrated report, which, boring business-focused stuff you don't need to really worry about, just designed to convince people with money that Capcom are going to make more money with the more money they give them in the first place. But for us gamers, the interesting part was where they talked about the market of rapidly increasing digital sales of games and global PC gaming markets. There is great potential for future growth in this area, and we have designated PCs as a priority platform, to quote directly from the report. Except here we are in 2024, and we can't really see any evidence at all of that attitude, actually, having made its way into development practices. Dragon's Dogma 2, it just launched, and back in 2021 it would have already been in early stages of development, but with acres of time left to make sure to deliver on this whole, quote, PC as a priority platform, end quote, concept. But, as I'm sure a great many of you listeners are already aware, Dragon's Dogma 2 on PC is an absolute mess. Crippling performance issues plague users, and stability is a mess with numerous kinds of crashing issues being reported. Some people can't even start the damn game. Nothing about this release indicates, even slightly, that the PC port had enough attention paid to it, much less for it to have been considered a priority platform. And just a few hours ago, as I pulled together the notes for this video, the official Dragon's Dogma Twitter account posted a little list of promised patches coming sometime in the near future, whatever that means. But the big problem with it is each and every one of the patches and fixes and things promised to be coming sometime are things that should have been fixed before the game launched, not just the technical stuff, but basic ass shit like being able to simply start a new game if you want, because you can't do that in Dragon's Dogma 2. You can't simply start a fresh game. How stupid is that? If you're on PC, there are hoops you can jump through. You can dive into the files and find the save files and manually delete them and hope it all works, because it sometimes does, and some people are reporting it does. Well, trigger de novo to lock you out of your game for 24 hours because it thinks you're starting the game on it. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Just Google it for yourself. I'm not going to run down the whole list of all the stupid shit that's going on with this. It's so annoying. And you will notice, I'm sure, not one mention of the PC crashing issues on that list of promised fixes coming sometime in the future, or the catastrophic performance problems. Just a pair of visual quality fixes for PC users. Yeah, that's helpful. That's the big problem. And all of this makes me very concerned, because while I'm interested in, but not passionate about, Dragon's Dogma 2, I am very passionate about Monster Hunter. And in the same year that Capcom published that report I mentioned earlier, Capcom COO Haruhiro Tsujimoto was interviewed by Japanese publication Nikkei at the 2021 Tokyo Game Show, and he was quoted as saying in that interview, "We will mainly focus on PC software going forwards." This is echoing the report, of course. Now, at the time, and ever since then, until quite recently, I took that as some pretty welcome news, but it might have just been a whole big pile of Diablo's dung. And like I said, Monster Hunter is one of my favorite games of all time, though like many hunters outside of Japan, I'm comparatively new to it, first encountering it in earnest with Monster Hunter World in 2018. I did briefly play an earlier version, but not, properly. And to put that into context, a couple of weeks ago, the series as a whole turned 20. So that's what I mean by relatively new. But Monster Hunter World is a great example to use here as we expand on Capcom's failures and expected continuing failures for that matter, and also Monster Hunter Rise, because they both had the same problem. They both started life as a console game, as their core development priority, as every Monster Hunter game before them ever had been. World was built for PlayStation, well, Xbox too, but that second choice was more about one of World's main development edicts, which was for it to be designed to appeal to Western audiences, which means it also has to be on Xbox. And it worked. World became Capcom's best-selling game ever. It became extremely popular in the West. It rocketed Monster Hunter's profile globally and made it the best-selling game Capcom have ever done. But historically, Monster Hunter was at home on PlayStation and Nintendo consoles, two things very popular in Japan, unlike Xbox. World did get a PC version, but it was a secondary priority, very clearly, because it was based on the console versions. It had a lot of issues around that because of that. Graphics settings issues, severe problems with keyboard and mouse inputs and configurations, all that kind of thing. And it was also late, arriving more than 6 months after the console release, which meant most hardcore fans already invested time and money on console. They probably weren't going to come across to PC. There was no crossplay or cross-save anyway, so very few switched over because they couldn't bring the 6 months they've already spent in the game with them anyway, or just to play a better-looking, better-running PC alternative. I mean, World still did very, very well on PC, but it could have done quite a lot better. It also meant that all the content updates were also 6 months delayed on PC, creating an annoying disparity in the player base. Then there was Rise, originally designed as a Nintendo Switch exclusive, so from the bones to nose it was made for a low-performance device which affected everything about the game, but it was wildly successful, and Capcom didn't really want to leave money on the table, so while it seemingly wasn't in the original plan, they did start working on ports for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Rise was released on Nintendo Switch in March of 2021, PC saw it in early January of 2022, and the other consoles a few weeks later, also in January of 2022. They learned one lesson this time though. It launched with all of the content the Switch version already had accumulated, and moving forward there was a much reduced content disparity issue. Most stuff came day and date across all platforms. And the expansion, Sunbreak, was released simultaneously on all platforms in June of 2022. Still, no crossplay, no cross-save. Hell, even Steam players couldn't play with Windows Store players despite playing on the exact same PC machines. It was a mess for multiplayer, and all of this was because they designed the multiplayer for consoles. And believe you me, the player base was extremely vocal about that, and Capcom promised that they were, quote, listening. So we're all hoping they don't make this same crossplay, cross-save mistake with Wilds, which is supposedly coming day and date across all platforms it's published on. But you add all that together with the repeated promises of PC priority mentality in development, with no evidence of that from Dragon's Dogma so far. Now pile all that together and you've got a fan base for Capcom's most profitable, most popular IP, a deeply committed, enthusiastic, dedicated and passionate player base, all breathlessly waiting for the next game, Monster Hunter Wilds as we now know it, a name that we learned in December alongside its 2025 release window. We were expecting to see it this year, like right now as a matter of fact, as the 20th anniversary is being celebrated. And it's clear the delay caught them by surprise because the celebrations they're actually having at the moment are miserable and pathetic and nothing. The 20th anniversary of Capcom's biggest game ever, and it's going by with a whimper. It's absurd. And at this stage, with Dragon's Dogma 2, when we're expecting Monster Hunter Wilds to release, and with clear evidence that Dragon's Dogma 2 itself needed a delay of its own, basic features missing, huge performance issues, and a very obviously last-minute slapped-together microtransaction monetization cancers slapped on, one might easily imagine that it was pushed forward to cover the gap where Wilds was originally planned to drop, but wasn't ready. And as a much less important IP for Capcom, they threw Dragon's Dogma 2 under the bus instead, pushing it forward before it was ready to release, just to fill the gap they had in their schedule. And that's about the only excuse I can imagine that would justify or explain perhaps, not even justify, but explain the stupid failures of Dragon's Dogma 2. Say I'm wrong. Say the plan was always to release it like this, at this time, in this state. Missing basic features aside, the clear and obviously under-tested PC issues make me worry about how seriously they're taking their claimed intention to make PC development a priority. It obviously hasn't been. It smells like crap right now. And the microtransaction crap, let's get back to that. Monster Hunter World has over $800 dues worth of DLC items available. If you take out the $60 worth or so of the big fat proper DLC that is Iceborne expansion, that still leaves you with over $700 worth of crap from a couple of bucks to 20 odd individually, hundreds of items, and unlike Dragon's Dogma 2's couple dozen pay for convenience crap, hardly anyone complains about the stuff in Monster Hunter with any serious vigor. Would you like to know why? Well, largely I think because all of it, and I mean all of it except for one, is pure cosmetic stuff. None of it actually affects gameplay or the mechanics of the game, or is a skip or a convenient or a booster or any other kind of crap. And I'm relatively okay with this cosmetic stuff considering the huge amounts of regular and frequent and free content updates that both World and Iceborne and Rise and Sunbreak continue to get throughout their lifespans for years. I was indeed happy enough to throw a few extra bucks at it from time to time when there was a cosmetic or two that I liked. I never spent much on Monster Hunter and microtransactions, probably less than $30 in total across both games I would guess, but there was a fistful over the years, and that was amongst the literal multi-thousands of hours that I played those games. But then there's that one I mentioned, the character edit vouchers, or tickets, or whatever they call them, I forget, without which you can't actually freely edit your character's base looks, something you might take for granted in other games. Admittedly not something I do often, but I do know people who do, but it is still kind of shitty to have to pay for it. They do these days give you a couple of free tickets, and there's some stuff you can alter about your character without it, hairstyle and color and that kind of stuff and things, but you can't really change the structure of your character. But it was very much something that felt like them testing the waters for putting in more aggressive microtransaction garbage that actually affected core mechanical game stuff. A little toe dipped into the water to see how people would react. And because there was such a little toe, nobody made much noise about it. And the way Dragon's Dogma 2's development team, for all appearances, seemed to have been forced to put basic game mechanics and so-called convenience items in a cash shop when the game itself, as far as I can tell, is clearly not designed or intended to accommodate that stuff being sold in a cash shop, is a very worrying thing to do also. As someone looking forward to Wilds, it worries me that they're going to put a few more toes in the water, so to speak. So far, despite the sheer number of them, the MTX crap in Monster Hunter has been largely benign, with none of it having to do with gameplay mechanics, as I said, and while Rise pushed that envelope a little further with more armor and weapons, skins and whatnot, there was still nothing you can buy that changes anything about how the game plays. Which is why I intend to continue to be vocal about the kind of crap they did with Dragon's Dogma 2, even though the apologists would say, oh, it's just optional, and oh, you can just earn it in-game if you grind a little bit harder. That's not the point. That's not the point. It never was the point. Why are you apologizing for this? You sycophants, you morons. By definition of its function, if you put a pay-for-convenience item in a cash shop, the impetus in development is to make doing that stuff for free in the game worse than it would have otherwise been. Otherwise, there is no quote-unquote value presented for the convenience item. And if the convenience item is valueless, well, so is that mechanic in the game. There is no way around this argument. These things are cancerous to the game. We all know microtransactions aren't going anywhere. There is no going back now. There are still a few games that, serves themselves up without it and are largely celebrated for it, which is just ridiculous for, hooray, you didn't do the evil. Good for you. Pat on the back. But if we must have these tumors in our games, we also must continuously to push back against their ever-growing threat to harming gameplay. That is where my line in the sand is. You can draw yours wherever you like, but that's where mine is. Like I said in the opening, where once I was very excited about what Monster Hunter Wilds might hold, I am increasingly concerned, based on the behaviors I am watching Capcom exhibit right now. This isn't imagined threats, this is what I'm watching them do, and it makes me worry about what they're going to do next. However glorious or wonderful the actual game of Monster Hunter Wilds might be, however beautifully designed the combat is, however enthralling it is, however immersive the world is, it seems not just possible but likely that it will have some poison poured into its veins, not by the dev team, but by those grey-faced drones in suits holding the purse strings at Capcom. And that is the problem with all of this. Capcom might sit back right now and just wait for all of the loud content creators to move on to the next hot button topic and away from Dragon's Dogma 2, because that is the cycle of things. We all know this. There is the hot button topic that content creators sort of farm for clicks, and then the next thing comes along and we all forget about it. And Capcom are waiting for that to happen, for us to stop talking about the embarrassments of Dragon's Dogma 2. But what they don't hear is the damage it is doing to the enthusiasm of their future endeavors for people who aren't yelling about it. Because even if I wasn't a content creator myself, I would be remembering this, and it would temper my excitement and enthusiasm for Monster Hunter Wilds. And I will, as a content creator, be reminding people about all of this crap when Monster Hunter Wilds PR train starts huffing and chuffing towards launch. Before this point, I was right on the hype train. I was very excited, but now I'm just watching it. I'm still going to be excited about stuff they announce, I'm sure, but it's all tempered now. It's all colored with what is happening right now with Dragon's Dogma 2 crap. And yes, none of this is a new problem. I know there's someone in the comments right now going, "Oh, none of this is new. What are you talking about? This is just how things are." But that's the thing. The grey-faced shit goblins of the world want to exhaust you on this. They want you to get so sick of complaining about this, of hearing other people complain about this stuff, that you just shut up and accept it. That's the plan. Because the instant you do shut up and accept it, that's when they know they can push another few steps forward. And then the outrage will start again on that. And what came before it will just be acceptable, will be the standard. You know how I know this? Because it's already happened. That's why apologists for microtransactions exist. Because they've always been normalized to such an extent there are gamers out there right now who don't know any other world but a world in which they exist. I'm 45. I've been a gamer since I was 3 years old. Every single year of my life, I've been a gamer. I remember what gaming was like before this. But there are gamers out there right now who simply don't. They've been poisoned. They're corporate apologists, and they don't even notice they're doing it. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's shameful. It's pathetic, is what it is. Step back. Get some perspective on what you are saying and why you're saying it, and have a think. If you're a microtransaction apologist, just stop. Think. You're gross. To everyone else, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you found this interesting. Yeah, let me know down below how you're feeling about stuff. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. And I'm Bloody. We'll catch you next time. And I really hope the microtransaction apologists are a proper minority. They're loud, but let's just hope they're minority, because I can't stand the other alternative.